Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's Veeam 100 show. My name is Sophia Mohammed, and I'm a community manager here at Veeam. I'm joined by my co-host today, Edwin Weidema, and our guests, Falko Benazek and Matthias Schutzner. How is everyone doing today?
Very fine, thank you.
Hello.
Amazing. Glad to have
Doing
you
great.
for our first show of the year. Happy 2026. We skipped January, but we're back, and I'm very excited about our show today. To our audience, our group today is joining from the US, Germany, and the Netherlands, and we have production coming out of the state of Texas as well as the state of Ohio. Be sure to let us know in the comments where you are coming from. We would love to know and shout you out later in the show. As I mentioned, this is our first show of 2026, and if you're unfamiliar with the Veeam 100 show, maybe this is your first time tuning in, you tuned in a long time ago, don't really remember, this is a monthly show focused on all things community. It's a chance for our Veeam 100, the top technical evangelists from our Veeam community, that's our legends, our vanguards, our Veeam MVPs, to showcase a project they're passionate about sharing with the wider audience, the community. And this year, we're switching things up just a little bit, keeping the community spirit alive, but we're focusing on customer stories. So we're bringing in customers from our community, as well as our partners bringing in some of the customers that they work with to show a successful Veeam story that will hopefully benefit the wider community at large. And I'm very excited about that switch up today because we have a member we've never had on the show before, being Matthias. And I already see in the chat we have some Veeam 100 members joining us, like Marcus. Hello. Keep those comments going. We would love to see who's tuning in live today. Before we start the show, we would love to introduce the guests that we do have. I'll start with Edwin. Most of the audience probably already knows Edwin. He's been on many live streams before, but for those that don't know you, Edwin, please give a brief introduction.
Yeah, so I'm the field CTO for Veeam. I'm an explorer and translator for 30+ years, and I know some things maybe about cybersecurity.
Just a little bit. Very humble. Falko?
Yeah, hi, I'm Falko Benazek. I'm a principal field solutions architect at Pure Storage, and I'm focusing basically on cyber resilience, and Veeam is obviously a very big part of it.
And Matthias?
Yeah, hello, my name is Matthias Schutzner. I'm working for over 22 years now for the CID. I'm responsible for the backup infrastructure, among other things, also for networking, firewalls, storage. I started with IBM compatible PCs in the early 90s. That means seems I'm younger as I am. Yeah. Early on, I specialized on troubleshooting with PC issues for other people, and I'm working for Veeam Backup now for over 10 years.
Amazing. Welcome to the show, Matthias.
Hello.
Matthias and Falko have been working on a project that they're very excited to share, so I want to give them ample opportunity to use this show and discuss what they've been working on. So Falko, Matthias, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you, Sophia. So the topic of today's show is how to build up an isolated clean room on the fly with the Veeam flexibility. And if there's one thing you should take away today with is you can do it, first of all. And second is, maybe it's two things, sorry for that. And the second thing is you don't always need plenty of other stuff, plenty of software, plenty of hardware, plenty of configurations. You can really go with the bare minimums, and that's probably something which we will show today. So the agenda for today is basically a brief introduction also to CID, where Matthias is working, and then an overview of the current architecture, and then just diving into how he built up that clean room on the fly. And also we look at how the future architecture can look like and gets over some lessons learned during the project. Matthias, maybe if you could start to talk like a little bit of CID, what you're doing there and what the company is going for.
Yes, CID is a software company which creates individual software for the needs of customers. To achieve this, we need to gain a deep understanding of our customers' business processes. We develop IE-powered software backed by more than 10 years of experience in the field of AI. We are self-hosting and operate over 1,000 VMs in 3 data center availability zones. And we are very proud we have a 3-letter domain.
Yeah, that's something which is unusual nowadays. And I want to dig in what you just mentioned, that you operate many VMs and 3 data centers. And that's really all about resiliency, right? If you introduce as much layers and as much data centers and as much data availability zones as you can really get a deep cyber resilience in total. And that's also, if we jump into the general topic right now, what is a clean room? What is a SIRE? We should start with a clean room or a SIRE as is, because SIRE is just an abbreviation of secure, isolated recovery environment. That basically means you get an environment up and running to hopefully restore when you really need it. And why we are doing that and why is CID doing that? It's all about one key metric here. And the key metric is the so-called work recovery time. The work recovery time is the time it takes to verify really that a system is operational again and that you can start over. And the work recovery time normally consists of many things to do, right? Recovering of data, recover the work backlog, maybe there's something in between which has happened. And that work recovery time should be as, of course, fast as possible so you can get up and running again. And ultimately, a clean room, what we're talking today, or a SIRE, is just one layer. I'd like to talk in onions, right? So here's my favorite onion. I really like it. It basically shows that as much layers as you have, as harder it gets for people to breach your data. And that's the most important thing. And also a backup, for example, is a very important layer of data protection, but a clean room or a SIRE is a very worthy additional layer which gives you the confidence in restoring data. So if you think of the 3-2-1 rule, for example, think of a 3-3-1 or 3-5-1 rule to just add more and more layers to make it hard and unbreakable. So let's just differentiate a bit. What is the difference between a SIRE and a clean room? The clean room itself mostly supports investigations, right? And allows also experts to analyze malware or anything which is an anomaly. But the SIRE itself, the SIRE focuses really on recovery. That means you store data, you protect the data there, and you can also ensure that those data can be quickly restored if anything happens, if you want to resume your operations. Just to give you a bit of a context between what a clean room and a SIRE is. So there was a point in time, Matthias, and now it's up to you in a minute, where someone reached out to you and said, hey, Matthias, how fast could you provide the clean room when we would need it? I think there was a security operations team. And what would you need to make it run? And this is where it all started, right? And this is where we can look into the current architecture.
Yes, the current architecture, some explain about this image, where you can see our 3 data centers, 3 availability zones, all connected through a layer 2 network. Every availability zone has his own dedicated immutable repository, and overall a firewall for the entire data center. The entire Veeam and proxy infrastructure, not in detail to see here. Then we have here one of our sites, CID site and VPN tunnel, site-to-site VPN tunnel, where we were able to copy backups to a shared NAS filer. So that's only for this infrastructure. Yes, and one more immutable repository for backup copies. Nothing to see here in this picture. And I will tell you something about the story, how it was. So 2 years ago, SecOps team asked a critical question. In case of a security incident, is it possible to quickly copy VMs into an isolated environment? The goal was to start them while keeping their full functionality. A typical example is an Exchange server. It needs to find domain controllers using their original IP addresses to work correctly. furthermore, we needed a way to install analysis software without using SMB or RDP access to the machines. Also, internet access has to be strictly controlled. We had to make sure that these services couldn't accidentally communicate with licensed servers or other cloud services. This is where I came in. The task requires a mix of backup, networking, firewalling, storage, and virtualization.
And yeah, it's a big mix.
A big mix of 5. And I'm the one in the company who can control all these 5 sections. Yeah.
Yeah. And with this requirement being raised, you build up a isolated recovery environment, or a clean room in this case, which is visible on the next slide here. We can show, and this is what you build up. So Matthias, can you explain what the core idea here was, especially with the recovery in this case?
The core idea is first, if you go back to the first picture, please. Yes, as you can see here, we have a NAS filer, NFS NAS filer as shared medium. That means we used Veeam exports to copy them to the NAS filer and re-import them into the isolated environment, because it is possible to use a NAS filer repository with 2 different Veeam instances. We exported it first and then re-imported it. So we could import it with a Veeam instance with NFL license to this single ESX server here in this environment. And if you go to the detail, please.
Yep.
There we could restore VBMs and simulate every needed virtual LAN in this environment, inclusive gateway, DNS, or DHCP if needed. So we could start any VM from the data center and simulate his environment.
And that's the good part, which I was referring to in the beginning. You just need basic Veeam functionality, literally, to use an NFS filer where you copy your backup data onto, of course, with proper backup copies, import it on another VBR server, which has been completely separated from that default environment. We'll dig into the firewalling networking in the next slide, but that was the one takeaway which is really important. You don't need extensive software, hardware, or anything else to make that happen, as long as you have a very good understanding of the network, a very good understanding of the firewalling, and as long as you can really control it. And that is a crucial part here. So Matthias, speaking of firewalling and the IP simulation you just mentioned, can you go into detail here a bit more?
Yes. Important to know is we only use retired or legacy hardware for this, because nothing was needed with actual licensing or anything else. We restore the backups, we simulate the IPs of the gateways with alias IPs on our firewall interfaces. We got a DNS zone simulation with virtual IPs and previous copied secondary zone to the firewall. We providing firewall policies. That's the restored VMs can communicate. We limited the communication to only to public forensic services, by the way, or Windows Update if needed. We injected the forensic tools for testing with some virtual machine disks we mounted directly to the restored VMs. So we had no need to copy files over the network.
Yeah.
So we have only access to a local disk with the files we needed.
Yeah.
This is very important to absolutely isolate the machines for networking. In the case of an attacker has placed some software, maybe this is the idea here. And then we can run tests over the VMware console. This also means no network access to all restored VMs.
It looks like we have some comments and questions in the chat if we want to answer them. So Mohammed asked, how does Veeam ensure the clean room environment is secure and does it connect to production systems? Is it a kind of sandbox?
Yes, that's a good question, and that's exactly what Matthias has built up here. Because if you look at that slide here again, and the network separation, the Veeam environment inside that simulation or isolated recovery environment is completely non-dependent on the primary Veeam environment, so they don't know anything of each other. And that's what it really means, right? It's a sandbox. It's not connected to the other environment. The only connection you have is a one-time import of the NFS share. And everything else is strictly, like Matthias just explains, completely locked down. You cannot access it. And that's a pretty good approach because, like we emphasized this like 2 more times already, it's the simplest way you can do this with Veeam without thinking of any additional software hardware. And it's really feasible when you control the network.
We have
Yes.
also a comment from Daniel. Daniel says, I've done a similar project for one of the leading banks in the Netherlands. The design was pretty similar, but we chose to use FC-based storage due to speed. The backups were stored on S3 buckets. Adding to that, we have Juice, who asked, how can it be a clean room if you copy from your immutable to NAS to the isolated environment?
Yeah, due to the fact that it's already immutable and that Veeam writes self-describing backup files, you can really be sure that that data inside those backup files are not immutable. And if you leverage malware analyzing features built into Veeam, for example, you can double be sure of that. So that's also something which is important, of course. Then I see also that, one second, then I can also see when you copy this just once, you don't really have another connection following up. You can just close it down again, so you can be really sure that it's immutable.
Yeah, I think, Falko, coming back to Joost, his question, from the clean room, as far as I could understand it in the previous one, you pull the data into
Correct.
the clean room from that. So the clean room opens the door and then closes it again. So it shuts down and it's completely isolated again. That's correct, Matthias?
Yes, I think it's correct, yes.
Yeah, and if you would do it from an immutable repository with a read-only account, for example, that could also be an idea, but the goal was to ultimately do not have persistent access anyhow, and not that anyone sees that there's another read-only account. It should be separated. It should not be basically, unhinged, yeah.
And one more question from Daniel. Did you use NSX for isolating the compromised VMs and the forensic appliances?
I think there was no VMware NSX in use, right, Matthias?
No, not in this environment. This is only a single ASX server with no vCenter. Only a test machine was it. I have to mention this was before a switch deployment center. Only a lab for deploying network devices, switches, storages with a simulated environment of our data centers. Yeah. Because of this, I don't have to build from scratch. It was only some changes needed, 1 or 2 hours of work to make it running.
And that is the main message here. There was already hardware existent, there was already a room existent, and we used the most simple stuff to get this set up and running. Of course, with extensive firewalling and IP networking in place, like Matthias just described. And that is the main goal. So this really helped us just to be answering that question from your security team, Matthias, to get it, yes, we can do it in a day. Or like you just said, in 2 or 3 hours with basic functionality. But if we look in the future right now, there's of course some anticipated future infrastructure which we can leverage. Think of this as a really like a bare minimum environment. Of course, you can take that and then integrate or announce the Veeam disaster recovery orchestrator to it, for example, because it will give you the automated sandbox creation, leveraging the data labs, for example, and it will also help you auditing because you can connect Veeam1 to it and get reports, for example. Yeah, and furthermore, it helps you not to do it a single time, like a single import, but also to get continuous testing, to do dry runs, and this can be done separately from each other. And the potential environment where Matthias is looking at will most likely get more performant storage, maybe also in the form of S3, just to make it even faster and even easier to restore. And this is what the anticipated future can look like.
We have a few more questions coming in from chat. Lots of questions today. So Amit asks, do we need a separate license for SIRE/CRR, and how is it different from the CR site?
Matthias mentioned that they were using an NFR or a community edition, I think, in this case. That's one of the beauties of Veeam admin, that you can always restore, right?
Yes, because you don't take any backups in that SIRE location, so you're not bound for any licenses, but you're doing restores. So what you said, you can use the community edition. You can also reach out to have like an NFR, but you can even use the license you have in production to do this, as long as you don't take backups in that environment. So depending on, of course, the use case, but we can always look into that.
That is
Another
absolutely correct.
question from Juco. Is it fine when using deduplication backup appliances, for example, data domain?
I'd say as long as you can import it, yes, it is fine. You need, as long as the storage target allows to connect 2 different VBR servers to it and import it once without affecting the already written backups, that's totally fine, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, there are multiple ways to build this around, but this is how Matthias did this in his environment. So yeah, just think about how you get from one stage to another stage to another stage to get the copy into the clean room without opening the door from production to the clean room. Should be the other way around. So think about that, and then think about the hardware and software parts you have already in store, already in your company, and how you can work with that.
So Daniel asked, considering a scenario where a large ransomware attack is impacting a corporate client, how would this solution scale? For example, a few hundred of VMs being impacted, how many recoveries can you perform in parallel? How the forensics would happen at scale? And how
Good
about
question.
physical hosts? Daniel added onto that. Daniel has many questions. Thank you, Daniel, for keeping the chat alive.
This
Yeah.
would take much more time to install more ASX servers, to install a VTSR server for this. Yes,
Yeah.
to scale it, you need faster storage, and find a faster storage ad hoc. Difficult.
No,
Yeah,
it's always what I say. That's also what Falko and I have been doing for like the last couple of years. It's all about physics. It's the laws of physics. Depending on what infrastructure you have beneath it and what you can use or reuse, that will determine the speed you're going through the whole recovery. So think about that when you do this design, right?
actually very true, because the scale can only be as good as the architecture around it. And hence, this was a drill where the security team asked, hey, how fast could you be with the given things you have in your company? There was just one ESXi host. But if you plan this properly, and if you want to scale this, of course, you can introduce more networking switches, more ESXi hosts, and so much more. And of course, need a fast storage to do the restore pretty good. But this is all feasible with this kind of scenario. So, looking at the potential architecture, we just discussed this, but there's also some lessons learned, right? And we want to share a quick overview of what Matthias learned and what our call-outs are to the audience here, what is important. And I'm going to start with one thing: preparation is key, right? Matthias did this in a rush because someone asked him to do so. But if you prepare this properly, and if you plan this properly, it is a very cool thing, an easy thing to do. And of course, it's never too late. Start now. A clean room or a CIR, or even if you want to call it a third data center, a disaster recovery data center, is something which is easy to build from a technical perspective when you talk about Veeam. And it's really good. And also try to start with the KISS principle. Everyone who knows the Veeam best practice guide knows how the KISS principle works, right? Start easy, because you don't always need full-blown software and hardware. Just try to start and get something up. And Matthias, probably this is your point: intense firewalling, right?
Yes, intense. This is the only thing. This is not easy from scratch. You need something with many time of experience for simulating the IP environment.
Yes.
This you should play with this a long time.
That is actually very true. And last but not least, this shared storage and this concept we showed today is only one way to transport the backup files. There's several ways, of course, to import backup files. That was just the most feasible one in this situation. And also, the goal was to have a single one-time import and not have access to that system for a long time, right? It was just for a one-time import. And that's pretty important, because you don't want persistent access on those storage systems, because an attacker could investigate and see, hey, there's an account, hey, there's an access from somewhere else. What is this? And we don't want to leave those questions to those attackers. Yeah, those are lessons learned. This is what Matthias has built up. We can now dive into more questions, maybe Sophia or maybe
I have
Evan has
some,
some.
if I may, because I really love what you guys done, especially Matthias, what you've done, especially the firewalling. Yeah, that is really needed. That's also the hardest part in this. But I think the hardest part was get starting without having any extra budget, extra components. Just thinking about, okay, what do I have in the truck? What do I have in my environment? Can I build this? And when you create this, security teams love this. And that's also all the questions and all the remarks we get in like the chat. Everyone wants to have like bigger, better, faster. But if everyone should just start with this, get that foundation, like that base level, I will be so pleased as a security expert in that part, because that will save so many trouble already. And from there, of course, there are multiple ways to Rome, so you can build that, and also to the Olympics now. So, but yeah, building that from scratch. But I have one question for you, Matthias. When you're reflecting on your experience building this clean room, what were the biggest surprises you encountered during that process, whether positive or negative, and how have these experiences influenced your approach going forward with this project?
The positive thing was all worked like I thought about it. I planned this in my head and built it, and it works. Works like I want this. The performance was not very good, because networking was not very fast, and we had to store the backups on the NFS store with our copies only over 1 gigabit VPN connection, but simply it worked. No problems, no errors. We restored, we started, we checked. Everything works.
I think I've heard that slogan before. It just works, right?
We had it somewhere in the logo. We don't have it
Somewhere.
anymore. Yeah, we still have it on the building, right, Sophia? Where you are now on that building, it's still
Probably.
there. But yeah, I one final question. I think that might be one for Falco for that one. If you look through the project, you work with Matthias on that one, and you were also, like me, surprised what you've done. But if you look through the whole feature set and also seen in the chat about version 13 and architecture changes, and there's more things going to change in the near future. Is there any specific feature or integration you hope to see in the future that could help these kind of designs and projects?
So, good question. As of now, I would say not really, because we just proved that it's feasible without any additional things, right? But one thing we were talking about is that introducing S3 and object storage in the future would be a major game changer, because there's one very cool thing about object storage. It's stateless. So it means you can just call an API call over Ethernet. You don't have to use read accounts. You don't have to build up a intense user permission structure. It's stateless and can sit anywhere, right? That's why we chose S3 as the future storage.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay.
Great.
As we wrap up the show, any final word, Matthias, Falco, for the audience to take away?
Difficult.
No worries. Well, if anything, you could always find these guys on the Community Hub if you have any questions or comments after the show. Edwin, any final comments from you? From your
Yeah,
side?
I have one because we touched on the slogan. It just works. I would just
Yeah.
add one from like one of the sneaker companies. Just do it. Go
Mhm.
for it. Start small. Start building. Start learning from it. And because a lot of people look at this and they are scared about it, but as soon as they start working with it, it's all the pieces will come together. And if not, please go
Yes.
to the Community Hub. Talk to the other guys. Talk to me. To some other people in the cybersecurity space. There are lots of experts around that could help you with particular parts there.
Good call out. Well, thank you all. It's been a great show, a lot of great engagement, global audience tuning in. So this was something special to kick off the year with the Veeam 100 show. Thank you all again. We will be back next month for another Veeam 100 show. Until then, like I mentioned, like Edwin mentioned, you can always find these guys, the entire community, always there to help you on the Veeam Community Resource Hub. Till next month, we'll just wish you goodbye. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.